So, as we were watching Widow's Bay, the show that is not over yet, it's half of the season that is available now. As we were watching it, I couldn't help but start thinking once again about horror and how much it is a therapeutic medium for a lot of traumatized people. But it also got me thinking about fascism once again. And I already talked about the link between all kinds of subversion of the tropes in literature and media. And I talked about the link between fear and fascism on many occasions, because it is pretty obvious to me that fascism is absolutely a fear reaction. And it is something that happens to the vast majority of us if we live rather unconsciously, if we kind of react to things as they appear in front of us. If we do not take our time to study the dialectical method, we all, in one way or another, will succumb to the fascist ideology, which is not any kind of moral condemnation. It is okay if we realize what our fear reactions are. It is okay to examine them. There shouldn't be any kind of a taboo about looking within and seeing that you may reflect the same kind of the ideal that is being imposed upon you by the production processes. So when we look into horror and the whole subversion of the tropes in media, we see very clearly, of course, that we are all afraid of the same things: mortality, aging, being alone, etc. And of course, there is a huge escapist component where we all want to run away from this reality, and sometimes it has to be a very extreme fantasy that will help us kind of numb the sensations that we may be experiencing in real life. So the horror genre is a great example of this extreme escapism, where we have to be taken away, so far removed from reality, to be able to feel a sense of relief. And being submerged, or being immersed rather, into these fantastical world of horror, unfathomable horror, is very helpful to a lot of people who have experienced developmental trauma. And the vast majority of the people in the capitalist production in the world where capitalist production dominates, like ours, it is inevitable that we're going to be traumatized one way or another. And what we can do to help ourselves and the movement is examine those tropes, look into the face of our own fears, and see that ultimately many of these fears, even the fears of mortality, go down to the fear of dehumanization. We're all afraid of being dehumanized to the point of non-existence. It's not just that we aren't, it's that we have never been. There hasn't even been left a memory of us. And this is what scares so many of us, even if it is on a very visceral level. But a lot of the horror, modern horror, I can criticize until I'm blue in the face, because it uses the tropes, it uses the framing, it uses all of the components of a successful horror, but it has no essence, no substance within, because a person may not be speaking from a place of their own fear. And this is what I believe is true for most of the forms of art. You, as an artist, have to be able to examine your own deepest fears and your own deepest desires and your own innermost whatever in order to communicate it successfully with others or to others. Because if you haven't sat down and examined your own connection to this world, if you haven't found that contradiction of your being versus the rest of the objective reality, then you haven't really understood the essence of the movement, of that substance that you're trying to communicate. So fear is the substance that can be very easily communicated in all kinds of meditative, therapeutic processes. Just letting your fear be within you and asking it questions with curiosity. This can really become a great exercise, not only in self-help, but in art. So therapeutic art has been done forever. It is not a modern phenomenon. It has been done by people forever. It is a way people try and express something that is hard to speak about, something that is hard to express. So in images, in music, in movement, some things can be communicated much more easily than through other mediums or media. And I think that it is a very, very helpful way of addressing many of the modern fears, because we are seeing the rise of fascism all over the world, and it does spark a lot of fear in us. And of course, we are afraid for our safety and the safety of others. And this is a legitimate fear. But what is beyond that fear? Because oftentimes we fail to imagine the intercausal relationships, and we fail to observe them as well. Because the imagination is always a reflection of something that we are able to perceive from the outside world. And this is where the dialectical method is going to come in, not only handy, but as the only tool that will be able to empower us to understand what is going on. And the understanding is the beginning. This is something we all have to have established within our communities or organizations. We have to not have just the agreements in the discourse. We cannot just agree on things. We have to together examine and come to the conceptualization of some of the things, some of the phenomena that we are observing, and we have to re-examine them again and again in order not to missee and misinterpret what is going on around us. And we can start doing this by examining fiction pieces, be it media, be it books, be it whatever. And we have to do it collectively. We have to do it with other people. And it is rather bizarre and dystopian to sit there and analyze horror tropes with other people when the world is literally on fire and the fascism has made a huge, huge comeback all over the world. But it is something that many, many people will be able to afford to do, because it is not as energy consuming as some of the other organizing efforts may be. It may be a good first step in involving more people in your organization. So if you don't have some kind of an organizational effort already, consider doing a little bit of if you don't want to do a book club, do a little movie club, watch some horror movies, discuss those innermost fears, discuss those tropes that are actually a reflection of reality, an interpretation of reality. So let me know what you think. I hope you have a great day today. Consider supporting me on Patreon. Do take care of yourself and your community first. Subscribe to me on all the other social media accounts, even though I don't do much there. And I'll talk to you sometime later.